We have been sold the idea that we as a people didn't have a real impact when it comes to history. Thus, some of us have been trying to see for ourselves if that's the case. And often, when we do the research, we come across people who ask us the question, why study African history? What's the importance of it? And what relevance does it have for us today on a daily basis? Let's see if we can find some value as we look at the world through African eyes. African blooded people have the longest history of all humans, a fact easily checked by the emergence of Homo sapiens sapien in Africa. But as a result of enslavement and colonialism, we have been shoved into a 500-year window of oppression, alienating us from our natural African mind. For example, going through the school system of the Netherlands, I've learned about the Greeks, the Romans, the Germanic tribes, Nazi Germany, to name a few stuff, preparing me, us, for the standardization of everything European, effectively installing the problems of cultural and racial inferiority, leading to skin bleaching, for example, Afrophobia, distrust of other black people, adoration of all things non-black, non-African, and indirect and direct disinterest of our own culture. Things that we can see in individuals like Jacobus Kaptein, an enslaved African molded by the Dutch during the 18th century, who despite being made into a slave, became a defender of slavery after his freedom, seeing European culture and Christianity as superior to his native Fanti people. We can also see this conditioning in Oluda Equiano, an Igbo man that adopted British culture and civilization despite being brutalized by the British. I must say though, his Eurocentric programming manifested itself a bit different compared to Jacobus Kaptein. He became an abolitionist while perpetuating that the Christian civilization of the British was above the culture of his people. And I quote, "I could now speak English pretty well, and I perfectly understood everything that was said. I now not only felt myself quite easy with these new countrymen, but relished their society and manners. I no longer looked upon them as spirits, but as men superior to us, and therefore I had a stronger desire to resemble them, to imbibe their spirit and imitate their manners. I therefore embraced every occasion of improvement, and every new thing that I observed, I treasured up in my memory." So yeah, bringing this to present times, we can see a few manifestations of internalized racism caused by miseducation. We have people who bleach themselves, who see themselves as superior to their own people, who select partners as a way to become whiter or just non-black, non-African. Even those who are brilliant and see the problems still fall victim to this. People like the esteemed Frans Fanon and Sheikh Anta Job. We still have people who fail to support black businesses thanks to color blindness, light skin fetish, among other things, and seeing our ancestors as savages. And I could go on and on. It's easy to see what Eurocentric programming can do to African bodies. If one does not know their history, then one can be indoctrinated with the historical identity of others. The thing is, we need to have institutions and media based on our own experiences. This is what I try to do with this channel. It's not a strange thing to say that every people should know their external and internal history. Let me define that. So, internal history is the history of your people group and country, and external is the history of your continent and then the world. As Africans within and outside of Africa, so-called black people, we should perpetuate our history so that we can heal from the ills, the sickness of Afrophobia, commercial and cultural disunity, anti-blackness, etc., etc. I've been talking to come to this point. The value of African history is to remedy our miseducation and internalized racism. The solution is an Afrocentric approach to history, present, and future. Afrocentricity is a paradigm based on the idea that African people should reassert a sense of agency in order to achieve sanity. So, in other words, Afrocentricity is the idea that African people must view the world from the standpoint of Africans being subjects of our own historical narrative. A necessary outlook since Eurocentricity is portrayed as universal and that Africans stood still till Europeans brought us into the world. Africans were not observers to history. Africans made history, built history. We as African descendants can easily name European people groups, but when it comes to African people groups, people can hardly mention two. This is what we are acculturated to. Our orientation is unfit, which makes us miseducated, losing our own beauty standards, among other things. Okay, pause. I wanna do a preemptive move for faulty arguments. Some people push forward intellectual attacks like, if Africa was so great, why don't the Africans build great things of their past? Completely sidestepping that if you keep a person in perpetual survival mode, he or she won't be able to rise to the occasion to make a nation of grandeur and strength. This is the status that Africa has been shoved in. This is why Afrocentricity and African history is important. Let me know what you think. Do you see value in African history? Do you see value that African people tell their own stories from their own perspective? And would you support Afrocentric institutions? So yeah guys, drop some comments, like, dislike, and or subscribe. The end. Enough for today. It's time to remember what we have forgotten.